I'm a little bit early today rather than late. And I do have some interesting topics to talk about. I want to talk about this very bright youth from Britain by the name of Mitzi, who is a famous TikToker, and he got himself into some legal trouble. We're going to talk about him in a bit. But I found the interview fascinating. Like, he went on Piers Morgan, and there were a lot of interesting things that were said there. And we should definitely discuss them. And after that, we can talk a little bit about Target, which is being the target of a boycott. Not just any boycott, but apparently a right-wing boycott. So they're multiplying now. Like, after one was successful, we get to see another one. There is a interesting backlash happening. And Target actually bent the knee to the boycott. Like, that was very interesting. It shows that corporations are starting to be a little bit afraid that conservatives may have some purchasing power. And upsetting them isn't going to work anymore like it used to. Something interesting to talk about. The Bud Light effect, people call it. It is interesting. I will tell you this. It is empowering when you manage to get $1 billion corporation to bend the knee. So there is this thing in every person. It's not just like right wing or left wing. It's a thing that people have, like when you join together in order to accomplish something, whatever goal that may be. And you get like a huge corporation that seems like a behemoth actually bow down to your wishes. It's intoxicating. And this is why a lot of leftists did it. Now right-wingers have the taste. And I do expect that we're going to see more boycotts in the future. Now, about Target, it seems that they're down a couple of $1 billion. Let's see, how much did they lose? I'm actually curious. And all of this like was over something that I normally wouldn't care about. Apparently, like they were selling some LGBT stuff for infants. You know, I genuinely believe that a store should be a platform and it should sell everything, right? But we don't live in the world that I want, unfortunately. We live in the world where corporations are stakeholders and they have responsibility towards the community. Well, if the community happens to be upset, then I guess the corporation has to now deal with its stakeholders the same way that they would deal with the boards of investors. It's not the perfect society that I would have liked. Hello, American Outlier. So, we wanted to talk about this brilliant young man by the name of Mitzi. Now, Mitzi has been terrorizing the United Kingdom for quite a while. He is a famous TikToker, and part of his shtick is to prank people. But the type of pranks he is doing are not very safe. So, for example, he goes with his hands in his pockets, pretending to have a knife, and asks a person, like, how would you like to die today? Definitely terrorizing that person. Goes into a car and refuses to go out, pretending as if he is going to carjack. Walked into someone's house was the last straw, apparently. And as the person believed that they are being home invaded, he was laughing. So there is a little bit of play on diversity here, you know, political correctness, which I guess like the way the prank works is that he wants to show that, look, I'm just like a smart young man, and look how people react towards me. Like, they think I have a knife when I don't. They think I'm going to burglarize them when I don't. You know, I guess like that's the type of joke which he is trying to play. And meanwhile, the British public, they do see a person that's acting very aggressive towards them. Because, like, if you look at his TikTok videos, he does have, like, the body language and the tone of a person that's from the unsavory class, let's put it like this. And, yeah, people are definitely terrorized. And eventually, the British government has acted. I'm actually surprised that they did. They call him a prankster. I don't think like it's a prank. You know, like when you go up to someone and you say that you may have a knife on you and you may actually end their life. That is not a prank. That is a crime. But again, I do not live in Britain. I live in Romania, so unfortunately the laws are contained within the Romanian border. But if you try to pull some shit like this here in my country, you would beg the police to come because you would want them to save you from the clutches of the people around you. Like if you go to a lady and you say something like this, or you try to go into someone's car, and yeah, you would beg for the police to come in time to send you from the group of people that you've upset. But in the United Kingdom, they have a more diverse and forward-thinking society where people are afraid to stand up for themselves because they may get fired. And this is why this TikTok influencer is taking advantage of that culture. And I'll tell you in a bit why I think that is. But, these pranks apparently has given him a fine of £365. That's a lot more than I expected. Yeah, a lot of people would say it's a slap on the wrist. I'm surprised that he got the slap on the wrist. But what's interesting, and a lot of Americans are bewildered by this, he was given a criminal behavior order which bans him from posting any content on social media without the express permission of people in his videos. Like, this is okay. But the second one, entering any private residential property without permission. And people are like, so what the fuck? Like, you're saying that up until now, he could actually enter a person's house and not be a crime? And apparently in the United Kingdom, like, this is what blew my mind, this is a civil violation, not a criminal one. And I was like, holy shit. But I guess, like Britain, it kind of makes sense why that is. If you look at the British history, they used to have an incredibly polite culture. Like the expression, 1,000 pardons, sir. Or, would you kindly open the window for me, please? Like I guess like they were like the Japanese of Europe, if you will. So the idea of like going into someone else's house was unthinkable. But now I guess times have changed. Like culture has shifted really fast in Britain. And the laws that used to govern that society may not be adequate. Maybe they should look towards Eastern Europe and import some of our laws. In America, for example, especially in some countries, if you enter someone's private property, it's a little bit more dangerous. It's a little bit more risque. So, what I am trying to say is that in this particular scenario, it is laughable, right? Like the only reason he does it was for social media clicks, right? Like he wanted the TikTok views, but the other reason he does it is because the law allows it and the culture that he lives in allows it. You try that shit here or you try that shit in Texas, you aren't going to try it for long. It's strange how the fatherless, oh my god, American Outlier is going to get me into trouble with the YouTube mods. Fatherless black people in the United States magically imported itself into the UK. It's almost like there is an agenda being pushed to subjugate certain minorities into low-class settings. I don't think like this, so I don't know if this gentleman is fatherless or not. I do not think it's an upbringing problem because he knows what he is doing, right? Like it's not like it's not like he's unaware. Because the thing is, like, he knows the law. Like, he knew the legislation. So, in this scenario, it's more like he wants clicks on social media, and it's probably not even because those clicks make him famous, which it does. It's more likely that those clicks give him money and ad revenue. So I generally do not know if he is fatherless or not, but what I do know is that the main issue is that the law in the UK is way too lax for this type of behavior, and the people are afraid to stand up for themselves because they can get fired. Like, there was recently in the United States a story that went around the world, and this is the US, it's not the UK, but in the UK it's even worse. But there was like this nurse, which had a bike, and a couple of African Americans tried to steal the bike from her. So she defended herself, called for help, and it made around the news. Like it went on many mainstream media outlets and Twitter, suggesting that she's a Karen, and that her defending herself, it's actually, no, like she lied about the ownership of the bike. And eventually it turns out that she had receipts and she's going to sue the media over it. But it goes to show like what happens in a political correct environment when you defend yourself, even when you have the right to. And a lot of people are wisening themselves up to this, and they're like, okay, well, I can get away with doing this stuff because the current culture allows me to get away with this stuff. Apparently she was pregnant as well. See, I didn't know this. But still, I looked at the video. It was ridiculous because everyone was laughing in a way. Like she was exasperated. Like she wasn't afraid or anything, but she was like, help. Like she was like, oh, come on. Like I don't need this shit in my day. The other people that were trying to rob her were laughing and smiling at the incident. It was such a bizarre way of reality unfolding where you like everyone that's participating knows what's going on, but they still have to quote unquote play their parts. So like the nurse again, like she was like help, like she was just like playing her part, I guess. And the other people that were assaulting, they were laughing because they knew like that they're going to put her on the internet, and when that happens her career is going to be in danger. Even though she was the one that's the victim and she was being harassed by these individuals. And guess what happened? Like on the internet, immediately the mainstream media and everyone else went against the nurse. The British have been weak against racism. So like let's talk about racism because this is interesting. This gentleman goes on Piers Morgan. And this actually like fascinated me in the interview. Like Piers Morgan, he's talking about like, how would you feel if this was done to you? And he literally just doesn't care, right? Like, he doesn't care about the people he pranks, has absolutely no empathy, no compassion, that doesn't, like, even try to put himself into the shoes of others, like, just doesn't care. Okay. But at one point, Piers Morgan says, you leapfrogged over an Orthodox Jewish person. And he repeats this, like, 3 times. And this is when the guy snaps. And he's like, look, you're insinuating that I do this to Jewish people? Like, I do it to black people, I do it to white people, I do it to everybody, right? So literally, he's basically saying, whoa. Like, I may do all these evil pranks and terrorize the public, but I'm not a racist. Like, that's literally what blew my mind in the entire interview. It's like, well, I do all these things, but I'm not a racist. And there was another one where apparently he was walking up to a person and he had his hands within his pockets, and he's like, how would you like to die today? Like pretending he's got a knife. And Piers Morgan said, so, you did this to that woman. And he's like, no, I didn't do it to the woman, I did it to the man. Right? Like again, it's like, whoa, I'm not a misogynist. Like that's literally his morality. That, like, his diversity is his mindset. Right? Like, he's not a racist, he's not misogynistic. So, like, literally everything else is fine because, like, that's the echelon of morality. Like, as long as those are the pillar of behavior, right? Like, he's not misogynistic, he's not a racist, right? Like, he's not doing any of those bad things. So, he's still a good person. Like, that really blew my mind when I watched it because it's like, like, that actually makes sense. That's literally the morality that's being indoctrinated into people. Like, that's, like, the ethos, the most important thing. Right? Don't be a racist, don't be a sexist, don't be like any of these things, don't be prejudiced. But like all the other things that he was doing, those aren't like stuff that could get you fired or stuff that could get you investigated for hate speech or any of that thing. In fact, it's not even stuff that gets you banned from social media, as we saw. I mean, he was a famous TikToker. You go to TikTok, you say a South Park joke, immediately you get fired. But if you go into other people's houses, if you do all the pranks and all that shit, oh, that's fine. They don't care. Don't get me wrong, this boy needs to be punished. A dose of real consequences, sometimes giving them a wake-up moment. In his interview with Piers Morgan, he never mentioned his dad, just women, and showed no remorse. Well, that's the thing, what I found interesting is that he showed remorse the moment he was insinuating that he may be racist. Like, that's when he actually stopped and said, hey, look. I mean, to me, it was... Oh, and of course, like, there was also a funny part where Piers Morgan is like, oh, you're doing all of this for clicks. You're doing... And, like, Piers, you have this man on your show for clicks. Like, you're giving him literally what he wants. Like if you wanted to punish this man, The worst punishment you could give him was to make him irrelevant. Like, literally everything he does, his entire MO, his entire shtick is to get attention, right? To get clicks on TikTok. After he was on Piers Morgan, I guarantee to you, like, his TikTok account is going to explode. So, it is what it is. I wouldn't call it remorse. Well, no, it's, like, it was the only thing he was ashamed of, right? Like, it was the only thing he wouldn't want to be labeled at. He didn't want to be labeled a racist. Anything else, like literally anything else that Piers threw at him, he was fine. He had absolutely no empathy, no remorse, no nothing, right? Didn't understand conditional hypotheticals. Like all of those things were fine, right? But the moment Piers said, it's like, oh, well, you pranked this Jewish person a couple of times. It's like, no, hold on a little bit. I prank everybody. I'm an inclusive pranker. I practice inclusivity. It's just TikTok banned him. Well, you know, it's I guess it is a thing, right? Like TikTok finally banned him. Wow. But did they ban him because he had to break international headlines, or did they ban him, because like what he was doing was a violation of their TOS? That's also interesting. It's more like he knew it would land him in hot water. Motherfucker, everything else he did landed him in hot water. Like, honestly, like, he ended up in front of a judge. He ended up in front of the cameras on television and became famous. Like, everything landed him in hot water. But, like, he didn't care about any of those. It's just one thing that he cared about. Yeah, literally, like, I'm an inclusive prankster. I prank everybody. I don't just... And I don't do bad things to women. It's like literally the entire fucking interview. Imagine going to, like, give me the name of a serial killer, like, Bundy, right? You go to Bundy, and he's like, well, I was very inclusive, you can't call me a sexist. He's like, well, at least I'm not sexist. If he's not careful, he's going to do this to someone he thinks is weak, and he's going to get stabbed. Well, the thing is, like, the targets he chose were usually upper middle class people, right? So it was very unlikely. Now, if you do that shit in Texas, then you would have a point. I think if you do that shit to American Outlier, you may experience discomfort. But the way, like, if you looked at his pranks, yeah, like he chose his targets. Like he knew what he was doing. Like, this is why I'm saying that he wasn't stupid, right? Like he wasn't just like a person that didn't know any better. Like, he was a person that knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew exactly who to target, and this is why he actually made international headlines. The only problem is that he had no empathy for his victims. He didn't even consider them victims, right? Like, he considered them pranks. This is kind of like, I guess, like, if you have a bully, like a schoolyard bully that beats you. Is that thing still happening in schools nowadays? But, like, you have a person that, like, when you're at school, like, they literally beat you and shit. And they consider that to be, like, playful behavior. They consider, like, they tell the teacher when they're caught, oh, it's just a prank, like, oh, it's like, why is he complaining? Oh, I didn't hit him that hard. It's that type of individual. The Church of the Woke has done its job, says American Outlier. It will take a few generations for this to be suppressed. It won't disappear, just marginalize it into a corner. Yeah, I don't know how well they're going to be able to solve this issue. Because again, like, what do other people think, right? Like, what do other people think? Like, if you have like a completely different set of ideology, that is in conflict with the previous culture, because like the previous culture would be, how would you like it if it was done to you, right? Like that was the previous culture. So, it like for me, for example, even if I knew that I would make a lot of views and I would get a lot of super chats and stuff like that, I would never go to another person on the street to prank them, like, even if it wasn't against YouTube's TOS and even if all of that, because, like, for a while it wasn't. But I would have never done that because I would have felt ashamed. I would have felt embarrassed, and I wouldn't like it if another person does it to me. But, like, now there is no such mentality. Like, you have a group of young people which believe that it's okay, believe that it's appropriate to do. Because, hey, like, you get your views on social media. The Hasidic guy was the only incident that the UK police brought him in for. They largely hand-waved the other incidents. See, that is a little bit disturbing. But yeah, I mean, like he knew, like he clearly knew the culture. He knew that like doing this would not get him in trouble, or it's very less likely to get him in trouble. Like why isn't this happening in Romania, right? Because like we have TikTok here. You know, people also want to become celebrities on TikTok so they can get sponsorships and shit. Like people want this here, but it doesn't happen because if you try that here, people defend themselves. You're not going to be able to get away with all of this nonsense. Now, I'm pretty sure people in the UK would defend themselves, but they know the culture of political correctness, they know how the law operates, so they're afraid. Like, they don't want to lose their jobs, they don't want to be plastered on the media, they don't want to be the talk of town. So it is what it is. Apparently, his fine is half of that of Dankula. Yeah, like, comedian Dankula makes a joke. International newspapers had to spend years in trial, like, afraid that he may go to prison, all of that shit. And he got double the fine for this guy. It's ridiculous, you know. It does spark a conversation, I guess. What's interesting is that in the UK, come next elections, there is a overwhelming high chance that you're going to get a Labour government. So if you're in the UK, you're going to get a Labour government. I expect more rather than less. I expect more faster changes rather than less slower changes. There was an American prankster like this about a month or two ago. Got shot in the US. I think I heard about that. You know, like, this is one of the things where I do agree that social media trust and safety shit exists. Right? Because, like, the thing with Tide Pods, for example, right? Like, that was a horrible event which happened a couple of years ago. You know, you may have, like, more cynical inclined individuals that say, well, if you do it to yourself, you get the Darwin Award. You know, I get this line of thinking. But the pranksters, they do it to other people. Right? So, like, you or your mother or anyone else could just be walking on the street, minding their own business, and then a prankster literally terrorizes your mom. That's not cool. You know? So, like, social media stepping in and having, like, the TOS is understandable. My Glock 19 is a good attitude adjuster. See, I said that if you do this to American Outlier, you may experience some discomfort. But yeah, no, like, a lot of people are shocked about the American thing. It's like, oh my god, like, what do you mean? Like, he got shot. And it's like, well, why was he terrorizing people on the street? You know, you shouldn't walk to another human being and say, it's like, how would you like if you die? Like, that is not something that should happen in a normal society. Like, I'm sorry. It's just something unacceptable. Why aren't you more alarmed by the real-life Call of Duty match that's going on down the road from you? See, this is a lot of things that people ask. It's like, why don't you get alarmed by the war in Ukraine? Like, it's not something that I can influence. You know, it's not something that stays within my power or control. So, like, what do you want me to do? Like, run around hysterically? For how long? Because it seems that it's lasting more than a year. You want me to run around in circles with my hand over my head, going, oh my god, the sky is falling, the sky is falling? Like, there's nothing you can do about it. I want you to take in the fact that he essentially gave information to other criminals. People will die because of him? Like, what do you mean? I am unaware. Like, what information he gave to other criminals? Like the fact that that person's house was unlocked? Or, like, what are you talking about? By the way, like, people keep talking about TikTok. Apparently, there's research that was done by a professor by the name of Epstein. It's just a name coincidence. But he did research and he noticed that Google's algorithm, the search engine, and YouTube have a 70% liberal bias, especially during the 2020 elections. Like, they would make sure that people get only positive news coverage from Biden and negative news coverage from Trump. But, like, what's even more shocking is that for children, like 94% or something in those lines would be just flat out left-leaning propaganda. There's, like, nonstop. Like, that's what YouTube recommended. I don't know, but apparently, like, this is how he got the conclusions, and he used 3 independent sources that were ranking websites and were ranking YouTube channels based on political leanings. So, I was surprised that it's not 99%. Like, that's my surprise. But still, it is what it is, I guess. It's not surprising, right? Because Google says that they're not politically motivated and that they're they don't have a bias. But you look at how they donate, right? Like you look at how their employees donate and to which party, like overwhelmingly Democrat. And it's the same with OpenAI. Like OpenAI said, oh, well, our AI doesn't have any political leanings, yak. It's just the training, And then when you look at it and you do the political compass test, like people have done different political compass tests. They polled ChatGPT several times. Almost always it swings to the left. And it's interesting because it's neoliberal left, right? Like it's not communist or socialist. It's just like the establishment. Force all platforms to be neutral by law. No one wants that, man. Like at best, if you get right-wingers, like what they want is to control the platforms themselves. But no one would want the platforms to be politically neutral. That guy Epstein did way more than V. You should watch the entire GRE podcast with him. It's probably 2-3 years old now. I think that he released some more of his foundings recently. So if the podcast is old, then it means that he updated those. I trust Tom Macy and Ron Paul. I know who Ron Paul is, but I don't know who Tom Macy is. Prankster culture should almost be banned and has gotten way more out of hand. See, the thing with prankster culture is that I literally thought that he was smart enough to have actors that are doing the pranks, right? Because like you would think that most of these people would have the common sense to go to someone and pay the money. It's like, hey, let's act the prank, like something like that. But no, they actually hold on, let me bring this up, right? Like you would think that this individual would walk up to a friend and it's like, hey, like Jussie Smollett, okay, Jussie Smollett. Actually, say what you want about him, but at least he paid the actors to do the job. And he didn't, like, just go to random people on the street and harass them. Because one is a crime, the other one isn't. Although in my country, it may even be a crime, because even with actors, because you'd probably be under disturbing the public peace. Right? So, like, if you do it on social media and it becomes like an uproar and it's in the news and stuff like that, then it's like you're disturbing the public peace. I seen an idiot trying to do this in Japan. So like these pranksters are multiplying. There was this individual from Somalia and he was pretending that he's American and he was walking around in the Japanese subway and going like, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, we do it again, we do it again. He was violating so many cultural norms and he was even committing crimes in Japan. Like, you're not allowed to film people in public. It's rude to talk in the subway with other people. But most importantly, you're not allowed to film people without their permission. And if you know anything about Japan, Japan is very strict on censoring when it comes to anything nuclear related. Like, if you look at Japanese anime, you look at Japanese films, very rarely, if ever, you're going to see the nuke. For obvious reasons. But more importantly, like, I think Attack on Titan had the manga writer insisting that unless, like, the nuclear mushroom doesn't happen when the colossal titan transforms, then he doesn't want the anime and it's not going to happen. Right? So, but like, just so you can understand how important that is. So he goes down there, does all this shit. Eventually, like, there's another Japanese person which was from Texas, and he stands up to the guy. But my point is, if you're a foreigner, the last thing you want to do is to cause problems in Japan. Japan has a 95% conviction rating, right? Like if the Japanese cops arrest you, you think that what happened to Andrew Tate in Romania is bad? No. Like, holy fucking shit. Okay? Like they will do everything they can in order to get you in prison. So first of all, in Japan, if you go there and you're a foreigner, you're already at a disadvantage unless you speak the language very well. But even if you, assuming you don't, imagine you're in a bar fight and you didn't start it, you didn't throw a punch or anything. Maybe like you shove a person or whatever, right? When the cops arrive, they're not going to talk to you because you don't speak their language. They're going to go and talk with the Japanese citizen. He's going to give their side of the story, and then you're going to be arrested, right? And they can detain you, as I understand, for almost a year without charging, right? Because like people are in Romania, oh my God, detain without charge, detain without charge. In Japan, they can detain you for a year without charge. You're spending your time in a police station, and they want you to confess. That's literally all they want from you. Just confess. Many people don't even bother going to court and having a lawyer because they're like, oh shit, you know, like might as well. In the meantime, your visa can expire. It's going to be almost impossible for you to find rent after you get out. Like all of these things are taken away from you. The dumbest thing you can do, literally, like one of the dumbest things you can do is to go to Japan as a foreigner and commit any crime. Like, you need to be out of your fucking mind. I mean, you can get out faster than a year if you confess. But after that, you're going to spend time in prison and then they're going to expel your ass from the country. So, you know, like some people who have hopes, they're like, oh shit, you know, like I didn't do it. Because, like, legit, that there may be a couple of people that are taken by the cops without doing it. Or maybe they did do it, but they don't consider it something severe enough that they should be punished for. But usually, like, here's another interesting one. If you steal, right? So, like, if you shoplift or anything like that. So, if you shoplift, even if it's something that doesn't have much value and the cops catch you, what you can do is try to negotiate with the person you stole from so that they can sell you the item, right? Now it depends. If the person is a savvy businessman, and let's say you stole like a bag of rice or something, they can say, sure, $1,000. $1,000 and I will sell it to you. And if they sell it to you, then you get out of prison because like you didn't commit a crime. Other people just don't want to sell it to you because like they want to create the morality that thieving is not okay. Because they're sick and tired of having thieves steal from their shops. So, you're fucked no matter what. And then I've been foreigners that, like, they go into a shopping mall. They go to a store. And they buy a lot of things. Like, they buy maybe 10 things. But they forget to scan one. And then the police can catch them. And they can get into trouble for that. Like, depending how much of a boner the store owner has. And sometimes it can even be flat out racism. Like, they just don't like foreigners, and they're like, okay, well, this guy came in, and he didn't scan it. Like, I don't want to deal with this shit, you know. Let's make an example out of them. You do have, like, those people as well. So, you need to be really careful when you go to Japan. Jesse almost brought us to the brink of race wars. Regardless of what you think, when he did the POCs, gave him full support. And the woman in my family brought the narrative book. Who's Jesse? Like chat, tell me who Jesse is, because I didn't follow the American story before I started my YouTube channel. But yeah, you know, like there is a reason why there is low crime rates in Japan. One of them is the Yakuza, because they don't tolerate that shit in their territory. And the second one is the way the Japanese people behave. I mean, if the consequences are so dire, yeah, you're very... Oh, Jesse Smollett. No, I don't think like Jesse Smollett brought people on the brink of a race war. But like his story was so fucking far-fetched that it's shocking and surprising that people believed it. Like the moment I heard that a rich actor, so we're talking about someone that's a millionaire, he goes out at 2 a.m. in the morning in order to buy Subway. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Who does that in the middle of winter, nonetheless? Like, don't you have Uber Eats? Like who does that, right? Like, when it's cold outside, like when it's 2 a.m., you do not leave the premise unless you can help it. And even then, it's like you have, like, these people with the nooses and stuff, like, just waiting outside in one of the most liberal cities of America. Like, get the fuck out. Yeah, it's like, this is MAGA country. Like, that's... Anyway, let's read this one. Like, I love this one because, you know, they actually describe as if Twitter was a nice place, but then you get disappointment. So, The Atlantic is a far-left, I would even say communist publication. Hold on, I need to get an account with them. Give me a second. Internet Archive is the best account giver. Um, Japan's prison camp is pretty cool, to be honest. I learned a little bit, and I was very impressed. I don't know, man. Like the very fact that you're going to be in a prison, um, in a place where you don't speak the language, and you're going to be the other. I don't think it's a desirable situation. Why is Google hiding Archive Today from me? Huh? Does the Wayback Machine work? Yeah, the archive website is down. This is really interesting. What's the chance that two websites that deal with internet archiving are down at the same time, chat? This is look at this. So this is archive.org. And the Wayback Machine is similar. But I can access other sites and my internet is fine because otherwise I would not be able to be streaming. Huh. Omoshiroi. I'm just going to read a little bit from The Atlantic, as much as I'm allowed, but unfortunately we're not going to go through all of it. So Twitter has long been described, even by its most ardent users, as a hell site. I do agree that it's a hell site, but not for the reason that The Atlantic thinks. I mean, the idea that you can try to organize yourself and get other people fired is disgusting. I do not believe that social media should be used this way because someone made a joke or did something offensive, you should ruin their livelihood. Right? Like especially if it's not something criminal, right? So yeah, it is a hell site. Under Elon Musk, Twitter has evolved into a platform that is indistinguishable from the wastelands of alternative social media sites such as Truth Social or Parler. What I find it interesting is that they're not saying 4chan, they're not saying Gab, right? Like they're not saying like actual websites that would definitely violate the sensibilities of most people. No, like Truth Social and Parler. I will tell you something about Parler. I remember very well when it was getting popular before they destroyed it. But what was fascinating is that on Twitter, people were talking about the Holocaust, like the Holocaust was trending. And I was thinking, like, when does that come up in a normal conversation? You know, like imagine going with your friends to have a beer, and you're like, so let's talk about the Holocaust. Like, how do you guys feel about, you know, like that doesn't happen. But meanwhile, on Parler, it was like, here's 10 reasons why golf is better than sex. And like, you know, yeah, that's definitely something that boomers would talk about. Like, because like the trending page was actually legit. So anyway, in December, I argued that if we are to judge Musk strictly by his action as Twitter's owner, it is accurate to call him a far-right activist. Holy shit. As a public figure, he had. I wish that Elon Musk was a far-right activist. Like, I would just buy like 5 more Twitter blues. Like, this would be hilarious. Don't forget that LA Times, the black face of white supremacy. I never seen the new pinwheels and white sheets were being so inclusive and diverse. Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at what they mean by white supremacy in the academia, it has almost nothing to do with white people. Like, anyone can be a white supremacist if you look at their revised definition. You can be a black person. Like Kanye West, for example. Kanye West, according to the academia, is a white supremacist. Anyway, in December, I argued that if we are to judge Musk strictly by his action as Twitter's owner, it is accurate to call him a far-right activist. As a public figure, he has demonstrated an unwavering commitment to rights culture war against progressivism, which he refers to as the woke mind virus. I'm really curious to know like what they would consider to be just right-wing, but I guess like literally anything that goes against progressivism, right? Like even a neutral stance is far right. So unless you're on board, and by the way, like I noticed also how this thing works, right? Like it's described as a vertical indoctrination. So you have like the top, the institutions from the top pushing the woke message to the bottom, right? Like for example, if you go and you look at what happened with Bud Lights, well, it's the parent company that was pushing progressivism. And if you look at the parent company, is somewhat even higher, right? So like they're pushing progressivism through all of the institutions, right? Whether it's a commercial company that's doing a woke advertisement, whether it's a school, whether it's a politician, whether it's a video gaming company, like all of these things are pushing progressive messages. And the goal is to super saturate the market in order to make people believe that, number one, they're in the minority and they're isolated. And number two, and this is very important, is to convince people that the progressive framework is the only framework that can exist in a society. Like, you cannot view the world through any other lens than a progressive lens, right? This is why you end up with the TikToker that's the prankster, and he doesn't care about, like terrorizing people and committing crimes like that. He doesn't care about that, but he does care about not being called a racist, and he does care about not being called a misogynistic, because that is the moral framework. That is the woke culture. That's the type of individuals that it creates. So anyway, a public figure demonstrated an unwavering commitment to swamping the woke mind virus, and his $44 billion Twitter purchase can easily be seen as an explicitly political act to advance the specific ideology. Now, the site itself has unquestionably transformed under his leadership, one that offers a haven to far-right influencers and advances the interests, prejudices, and conspiracy theories of the right-wing American politics. I think what they're more upset is the fact that the leftists are getting fact-checked. Like, the fact that, like, far-right conspiracies are being spread, like, that they can live with that. But when they see, like, left-leaning people like AOC getting community notes and fact-checked, that's what really pisses them off. And by the way, like, you can tell that all of this story is bullshit simply because when Elon Musk was at the BBC, there was, like, this BBC journalist saying, like, oh, I see so much hate speech on Twitter. And Elon Musk goes, like, can you give me one example? He literally couldn't. He couldn't give one example. And it's like, okay, well, what more can you say? Earlier today, NBC News reported that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is starting to kick off his 2024 presidential campaign in a Twitter Spaces event with Musk. Twitter quite literally is a launchpad for right-wing political leaders. Well, I love the fact that they're not calling them far-right anymore. Like, notice the sleazy thing. Like, they're not going to call DeSantis far-right, but like they start and they say, oh yeah, far right, horrible. Now let's talk about like, oh, the right-wing politicians, they're not good either. Also today, the Daily Wire, the conservative media juggernaut, to be honest, like the Daily Wire is really big. It's kind of like the Walt Disney of right-wing culture, unironically. Like, it's massive. I didn't expect that, but like what Ben Shapiro is doing there, I don't know, like he's actually creating a really big platform for right-wing content. So anyway, the Daily Wire, the conservative media juggernaut that is home to Ben Shapiro, as well as the political commentators like Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, who are known for arguing against trans rights, announced it would bring its entire slate of podcasts to Twitter starting next week. And earlier this month, the former Fox News Tucker Carlson also announced. Oh my god, like you're describing Twitter as the best platform ever. Holy shit. Unfortunately, I can't read more of this because I would have to get started and have a subscription for uncompromising quality, enduring impact, and my support would ensure a bright future for independent journalism. See, I would like me to be the next independent journalist, so I guess, like The Atlantic should support me in order to show their commitment to that. But it is what it is. Anyway, how much time do we have left? Oh shit, we got 16 minutes left. What do we talk about this 16 minutes, chat? We got a new video game coming out, Gollum. I looked at it, the graphics looked amazing, but I don't know if I'm going to actually make a playthrough of it. But I will make a playthrough of Street Fighter 6. I really like playing in the beta. I think it's a great game. Diablo is coming out. Now, what's interesting about Diablo is that it's coming out on the 6th of July, right? However, if you are mentally challenged and a little bit mentally deficient and with more money than you can spend, you can actually buy Diablo 4 days earlier. So you can actually play Diablo 4 days earlier if you buy the deluxe edition. So yeah, I mean it's up to you to decide. I will personally not do it, even though there should be an incentive to me, because I would make super chats, right? If you play and you give it a head start that a lot more people could watch. But I didn't like the game that much. The difficulty wasn't there, which is really upsetting. But secondly, and this is really bothering me, is that it looks like a Korean MMO, right? A Blizzard game looks like a Korean MMO, but without the ushikushi ladies. You can discuss some of your game and my manga. I mean, there's not much that I can discuss about my game because I don't even have a trailer to show yet. But about your manga, I mean, again, the same problem. It's not out. Like, when your manga is out, we can discuss. But follow American Outlier on Twitter. He does make his own manga. It's very ushikushi. He's got some really cool ladies there. And might be we're talking about doing a little bit of a crossover, like one of a guest character from his manga might appear in my game. We'll see. But yeah, I need to actually do more work on the game before I can show something. Right now, I do have like most of the story done and some of the art, some of the assets. But more importantly, next month I'm starting to pay the developer to actually start working on the game. So we got a nice editor as well that allows you to introduce dialogue and have like RPG type conversations. So hopefully that will speed things up, and with any luck, starting next year, I would be able to have the game up on Steam. If you're a good editor, though, like if you're a really good, talented editor, contact me on Twitter. I may have some work for you, paid work. I will pay. But we do have like so far some really great musical composers. They did an amazing job. Like most of the music in the game is custom made. We'll see about voice actresses. I'm thinking about getting some ushikushi Japanese ladies because they make some interesting squeaky noises that European women are just not able to reproduce as well at the same quality. The art is absolutely mind-blowing and amazing. So, yeah. Play NES Mega Man if you want difficulty. You know, like that. Dude, I grew up with those games. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, I understand Ninja Gaiden. You know, like that was a hard game. What was it called? Ghosts and Goblins? Right? Like, I grew up with those games. When I hear people say it's like, oh my god, like, it's a child's game. Like, why should it be difficult? It's like, I don't know, like, when I was a kid, difficult stuff was fun. Like, I actually enjoyed being challenged. Why should a child not be challenged? This is something that I never understood. Editor of what? Character. Well, it's actually like when you create the game, right? So imagine your RPG. Imagine, I don't know, like Baldur's Gate or Neverwinter Nights. You know, like you got the dialogue and stuff. Like you gotta implement those dialogue trees within the game. So one of the ways you can do it is to have your coder create an editor so that people like myself who don't know coding can still introduce the dialogue within the game. Does that make any sense? So like we made that editor. Basically like anyone can now put dialogue and have like some control over the NPCs without actually knowing how to code. Ghosts and Goblins is really hard, yes. V, you better stick to Japanese voice acting. Stay away from English. You know, like, I actually seen a couple, not a lot, but I seen a couple of Japanese games that do have Western voice actresses, but, like, they speak Japanese and they do a good job. So it really depends. I'll have to look at it. But I am tempted, yes, in getting Japanese voice acting. The problem is like you need to translate the game first, so. I think that's called a planner. No, it's called an editor. Like literally, that's how it's called. Anyway, right? I need to go make my videos for my other channels. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. And I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.